I just watched Press for Truth's most recent video about the G20, and honestly, like, it had me in tears because it's just so horrible that this is happening in our country. Just to tell you a little bit what was in it, you see peaceful protesters sitting on the street singing "Oh Canada," and then the cops just charge them, and the cops outnumber the protesters like 3-1. They're shooting something at them, and maybe it's tear gas, grabbing them, stuffing them into vans, throwing them on the ground. I mean, really, they just completely attacked them. And I had said that I thought that the best thing would have been to boycott the G20, but I realized it's not realistic. I mean, it would have been very embarrassing for them if absolutely no one had showed up except for their provocateurs. It would have been hard for them to explain how they let those provocateurs then get away with the things they did. But it's not realistic. Of course people are going to be there. And the journalists like Dan and Charlie Beach and everybody who went down there to document it was very brave, and they should be commended for that, because they put themselves in the line of fire. But the other thing that would be good when there's a setup like that would be to protest in your own city, because they wouldn't have their provocateurs ready. You know, take them by surprise. What we have to declare when we have a protest? Oh, right, we have to warn them so that they can come in and like do their stuff, you know. This stuff really bothers me on a personal level because my mother grew up in Nazi Germany, and my father was detained in the Gulag for 2 years in Russia for having failed to register his existence with the government. Everybody was supposed to register, and he just didn't do it. It's the kind of thing he would do. And then he walked into a police station one day to ask some question, and they started asking him questions, and next thing he knew, he was in the Gulag. So I heard a lot about what it was like to grow up in a tyranny. Or my father was a little older, you know, he was maybe 18. What it was like to live under a tyranny, and I heard about that stuff, you know, growing up, and I can recognize it. I see what's happening here. It's pretty amazing that a lot of people still don't want to see it, but they're gonna have to wake up at some point. See, the thing is that the G20, this was a drill, you know, this was a real-time drill, and you know, the police should be thanking everybody who showed up to help them carry out their drill. It's like a martial law drill. I was looking at the papers, our local propaganda paper, in the aftermath, what they're saying. Number one, well, given all this extensive spending, 1.2 billion or whatever it was, how come they couldn't stop the anarchists? Well, good question. I mean, if all those cops and all that spending can't stop a group of people, then we've got a problem with our police patrol. To spend all that taxpayers' money on the security, it didn't do jack. And now, here's what the paper says. Toronto wants to bill Ottawa compensation for G20 damage. Ottawa, federal government, you know who that really is? That's you. That the money that the government has, it comes from your pockets. So now you, suckers, who funded this, well, we weren't really given much choice, but now they take it from the taxpayers to fund their drill, and when the drill goes exactly as planned, that's wonderful for them. What are we going to do about the damage? I know! Take more money from the taxpayers, from the federal government, and let's pay those store owners, because, well, it's not right. Well, it's not right. It's not right that they did a drill at their expense, but it's also not right that you know, and that their stuff got damaged. It's also not right to demand for us to pay for it. Now, gee, thanks a lot. Talk about adding insult to injury. Thank you for showing up at our drill. Thank you for funding it. Now we're going to make you pay for the damage and the cleanup. Great. That's really great. Thanks. Effort to showcase nation a flop. Yeah, it didn't make Canada look very good. Tactics of thugs might inspire others. They would like you to believe that there are these groups within society, these miscreants who, no matter how many good people there are out there who just want to sit there and sing, "Oh Canada," you know, they're these anarchists, right? That there's always people like that out there. Thugs. The Prime Minister calls them thugs. Well, they are. They're cops. Thugs. Pretty appropriate. We've got to do something about this, you know. I guess it excuses the bringing in all that security, or maybe it doesn't, because in the end it didn't do anything. Maybe we should just get rid of the police altogether. They do at least ask the question here in the other article, who requested the temporary suspension of civil liberties for the duration of these summits, and why was this done in secret? Good question. But this is the article that I really wanted to bring to your attention. Uncle Sam wants your data. Oh, it's all related. This is all related. See, now Homeland Security wants the Canadian airlines to give data on all passengers 72 hours before they board, so that if they're flying over U.S. airspace, Homeland Security can now decide whether they can fly. Because if you're on a no-fly list to the States, you know, you can't get on a plane in Canada and go to the U.S., but you could still go to Mexico or France or something. But because a lot of Canadian flights pass over American airspace, the Americans say, well, you know, we have the right to protect our airspace, so they can control who can board any flight that goes over American airspace at any point. Okay, they actually mentioned in this article, if you are on a no-fly list or have the same name as someone on a no-fly list, you could be questioned, delayed, or even barred from the flight. Did you get that? If you have the same name as someone who's on a no-fly list, that's excuse enough to keep you from flying? It's interesting the way they wrote the article too, because, you know, they give some time to discuss like why this is a violation of your personal freedoms and, you know, the opposition to it. But the whole last part of the article is saying how, you know, really the U.S. has the right to do this, and that the government's going to see to it that it's done in a reasonable way. And it ends saying, we are happy to see there is clarity in the law and a debate in the House of Commons. Look, what can I say? We're totally screwed. This is Nazi Germany, Stalinist Russia. What happened to my parents, it's happening now. People need to get their heads out of the sand. Never mind that the no-fly list system didn't work. Now you can't even fly over U.S. airspace if this law goes through. If you have the same name as somebody who's maybe a terrorist or maybe not. And meanwhile in Canada, under this new Public Works Protection Act, they designated Toronto as a public work, and that gives them the right to say, "Help us, please," and search your pockets. I don't know what to do. Does anybody out there have any suggestions? 'Cause I don't know.